America, what is going on? Hope everyone here is having a great day. Hey, listen, this is Nick back here with another video of the Triple J podcast. If you don't know me or what Triple J is, a Triple J is essentially a marketing platform and brand that promotes the best marketing content on the planet, so that way you can grow, whether it's in your personal brand, your portfolio, your business, whatever it might be for you. Okay, the goal here is to provide you with the marketing strategies and principles used by Fortune 500 companies, so that way you can leverage them and evaluate and see, if it's something that you should do for your business or something that you should avoid. Okay, that is the whole point of the show here. The podcast you're listening to now, the Triple J podcast, has shows within the show. The show you're listening to today is one of my favorite series that we have, which is the Marketing Case Study series, which is where I break down my latest marketing case study, basically do a deep dive, and share with you my personal thoughts on the campaign that we're covering. But other times, we have other shows within the show. Okay, we'll have shorter segments like Real Talk. Real Talk is typically a 5 to 20 minute segment where I give you some real talk, advice, and counsel, and just life advice that I think is worth sharing to you. We have those a couple episodes back you can take a look at. We have a couple in the portfolio bank. Other times we will have a Q&A, which, as I'm sure you know, you provide the questions and I, in turn, give you the answers. If there's any point where you have a question that you want to ask me, there are a couple different ways in which you can do so. The first way, and probably the fastest way to do it, is to simply message me on my LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest way to do it. You can look me up at Nick Gelderks. That is the easiest way to do it. It's also going to be linked here in today's show notes. You can take a look at it. If you want to find other ways you can do it, you can simply email me at triplejstudios, with 2 S's at the end, at gmail.com. You can fill out my contact info on my website at triplejstudios.com. Or if you want to, you can go in and comment on the YouTube from this episode or any episode and go from there. So one quick announcement that I'm doing, guys, is now I am taking all of these podcast episodes and going to be putting them on my YouTube as well. Okay, if you want to go take a look at it or listen to episodes there, you're obviously more than welcome to do so. That's going to be linked here in today's show notes, along with the other ways you can ask your questions. But outside of the Q&A, we also have our PTI, or Peruse the Internet segment, where I go through and essentially peruse the internet and take a look at marketing news and strategies being used by emerging companies and simply evaluate whether they're worth it or not for you. Okay? We also have our typical run-of-the-mill guest format, where it's just like a typical podcast. I go in and invite a guest on the show. We talk everything branding, marketing, entrepreneurship, personal development, business, whatever you want under that umbrella. That's what we discuss. And so those are the different segments that we have here within the podcast. But before we begin, as you know, I have this thing that I like to call the fee. This is your first time here. Let me go ahead and explain what that is. If you find this show valuable, you take something away from it, if it makes you think, if it makes you laugh, makes you wonder about something, or you think somebody could find it worthwhile, the only thing that I ask is that you simply share the show, and that's it. You don't need to follow me on socials. You don't need to subscribe to my newsletter. You don't need to do any of that, okay? The one thing I do ask is if you enjoy it, just share it. It's basically a kind way of saying thank you for putting out the content and lets me know that I'm doing a good job. So if you could do that, it's really simple, really easy. Either rate the show, share it, whatever you want. It would mean a lot to me and helps me to keep putting out good stuff like this. But let's get into our topic for today, which is our Marketing Case Study series. Now, if you've been following my content, whether on LinkedIn or on my website, you know that one of the very first, actually was the first case study that I ever did, was over the Nike Air Max DM. Okay, it is Nike's newest Air Max model in their Air Max line that released on March 26 of 2024, which is their typical marketed Air Max day. Okay, they've done this for 10 years, and this is their newest iteration within the Air Max DN. And obviously, it's gotten a lot of press. No surprises there. But Nike continued to build off of its marketing campaign by essentially expanding and making it bigger and better than ever before. So I want to go ahead and share with you the case study here. This is on my website that you're looking at now, which is Triple J Studios. Okay. I'm going to see if I can put my face in here. How about that for the video? All right. So now my face should be in on the video. Okay. So this is the website here that you're taking a look at right now. I'll get into this case study that I'm circling. But if you're curious, this is where all of my case studies are. Okay, my entire portfolio is right here. Okay, everything from my latest ones up here. You can go ahead and take a look and read more if you want, all the way down to my earliest ones. For example, my Air Max DN. So this is the first case study I did, period. This is the first one here that you're taking a look at right now. I won't get too much into this, but if you do find this interesting, go ahead and take a look at it. It's on my LinkedIn and website. It's the very first one. You can't miss it. It is very well done. And Nike killed within this campaign. I won't get into the details behind this, but if you're watching this on video, you can see here the different reasons why it did well and why it sold out. The initial colorways within this shoe sold out pretty much no problem. But now Nike has made the Air Max DN model in general very accessible for customers to go in and take a look at, buy, because it's going to be one of their signature shoes. And anytime Nike has a big campaign like this, they roll out the entire red carpet for it because they know it's going to sell if they do it, and people are going to wear it. This is generally a pretty good shoe, pretty wearable shoe as well. And I would say based off of the past, 10 years now that Nike's been doing this, this is definitely one of the better ones that they've done. So it's definitely gotten a lot of press and a lot of headway, and I think people are going to really enjoy this shoe. But enough of the old case study. Let's take a look at the new one and kind of give you some origin story and background and why Nike continued to nail this one, because they certainly did. So just taking a look here, obviously the Air Max DN's taken the world by storm. Okay, not just here in America. This is also very popular in other places and countries, even in Europe as well. The Europe scene has been dominated by Adidas for, I don't know how long. Okay, it's been a predominantly Adidas type of environment. The best way to describe it is here in the US, it's mainly Nike for the most part. Like, yes, there's Adidas, there's Under Armour, there's New Balance, there's other companies as well. But if you were to pick one company that kind of dominates the whole retail and sneaker game, Nike's the only one that you can really pick. Okay, and the umbrella of Jordan and Converse as well. Well, in Europe and other countries in the EU, it's mainly been run by Adidas. Okay, since it's a German-based brand, it's no surprise that Adidas reigns supreme there. Okay, but Nike's kind of making an attack here with this. So it's interesting to see how the dynamic has kind of shifted once this sneaker has come out. Okay, and it's been endorsed by several celebrities that have been known worldwide and even European ones as well. So it's interesting to see how this is kind of unfolding here for Nike and kind of the retail space as a whole. But obviously you can take a look and see its expanded influencer network, which is the big thing I want to talk about here. Now, if you've been keeping up with the podcast, you know that I've mentioned influencer marketing quite a bit. And it's actually one of the most talked about topics on the show. Okay, no surprise. When big retailers leverage these types of strategies, they do it because 1, it works. 2, it's the most effective for how much you pay. And 3, you just get a lot of noise around it. Okay, and because Nike has arguably the greatest influencer network, I think of all time, honestly, maybe of all time, they're able to tap into this without fail and succeed without fail. Okay, so let's take a look into this a little bit. Okay, obviously Nike has brought out several influencers and athletes to showcase its latest sneaker through Air Max Day. And they did so through a couple different ways, but the most prominent way has been through its Instagram marketing campaigns. So let's kind of unpack, before I show you the video, let's kind of unpack why Nike is utilizing Instagram for a lot of its campaign purposes. Well, understand, let's take a look at the silhouette. Okay, let's look up here. This silhouette per se isn't necessarily for an older generation, and that's not a knock to it. That's just, being observational. If I'm 65 years old or older, obviously there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But is this going to be a shoe that I'm drawn towards? Am I attracted towards? Maybe, but not really, not a ton. Now, it's definitely going to be less than if I'm, 15 or 12, at the younger side, because of a couple reasons. One, this definitely has a more futuristic type of look to it, okay? Kids are typically in the athletic worlds a lot, whether it's baseball, basketball, you name it. So this fits in with their genre and style, okay? Generally, kids are going to wear more athletic clothing more often, okay? And their style will mature over time. That's just how life goes, okay? But also, Nike's been a prominent brand since they have been growing up, You have to think Nike wasn't really kicking it off and really getting big until pretty much till Michael Jordan signed, in the mid to late 80s. And so, the older generations didn't necessarily have this brand when they were growing up. They didn't have it because it didn't exist. So they didn't have that nostalgia, the familiarity with it. They gained that much later on. And they might not necessarily have been getting futuristic shoes when they were, 20 to 30 years younger. It's totally okay too. But the younger generation has grown up with Nike and they have been known for its success. And that's why kids have been going towards it, right? So generally, this is a younger audience of a shoe. And if I were to give an age range for this, I would typically say anywhere between the ages of 9 to 10 on the early end, anywhere up to, I would say, probably sub 40. I would say anything sub 40. This is probably a shoe that's going to be marketed towards you. So definitely Gen Z for sure. Okay, a little bit of the millennial side as well. And I forget what the new generation is called. The brand new one. I can't remember what it's called. But essentially the youngest one. Okay, that's the big thing. So this is a younger shoe. And when you have a younger audience, you have to look at where are they looking? Where are they spending their time? Where is their attention going? And it's clear that Instagram is predominantly used by younger generations, younger audiences. Okay, it's mainly being used by millennials and Gen Z because that's what they grew up using, right? It's the same thing for Gen X's, like they grew up using Facebook and they still do. Okay, Facebook is the most used social media platform in terms of users pretty much of all time. Okay, and Instagram's right there because of the younger audiences that it typically targets. So there's kind of the background as to why Nike is utilizing Instagram as kind of its main platform for its marketing. So let's take a look here at the video and kind of take a look and see what's going on. I want to see if I can restart this video because I think it was going for a little bit. But this kind of gives you an idea of what Nike's doing and what they've done for a little bit. So let's take a look here and see. So obviously the background is March 26th. It's Air Max Day. Good product placement. Showcasing how fast you can go in a school setting. There's Sha'Carri Richardson, world-class track athlete. Billie Eilish. Running late. Okay. Erling Harland, I think is his name. Soccer athlete. Big name. Doing tryouts. Maybe late. There's Drake. Their typical slogan, feel the unreal. And his name is Max. So there you go. That's just that short of a campaign highlights 4 signature and high-class celebrities, influencers, athletes. All of them are mentioned just in that short video. And that's what Nike does so well. They don't need a 2-minute ad to showcase some of their biggest names. They just need a 30-second ad and a guy running across the pool, and hey, it works. And what's cool here is that none of like the stars or the influencers were the center of attention in this ad. They all played pretty minor roles for the most part. You know, I think the guy that, or the one that probably had the biggest influence was Erling Haaland when he just said, don't run, near the pool. Like, that's the biggest role within these people that were being used. And between the 4 people that were displayed within this Nike ad, they have over hundreds and hundreds of millions of followers on Instagram. Okay, so if you do the math between their fans, you're looking at close to, I would say, like almost 500 million fans and people watching this one ad because of the people they like. Obviously Drake is probably the biggest name, but I mean, even Billie Eilish and Sha'Carri Richardson, they're very prominent within their fields. Okay, Sha'Carri Richardson is one of the best sprinters in the world. Okay, she's an Olympic athlete. So having Nike utilize her for part of the ad is very smart, right? Because they want to showcase its running ability. So what better to endorse the ad by having one of their best sprinters, period, on the planet too, to promote the shoe. It's really well done. And the 90s theme video just kind of ties in the nostalgia within the whole Air Max line. If you're not familiar with the Air Max line, the Air Max line didn't really start until 1986 when the Air Max 1 was invented. And it continually got more and more models as years went on. And then obviously we know of prominent models like the Air Max 90, the 95s, 97s, and now even into more of the new school models where you have the Nike Vapor Max, the Air Max DN, the 270s, 720s, shoes that have been around for only a few years, but have still made quite a big name. Okay, and I also noticed, if you're curious on what this was also to the Instagram video that we just saw, just so you're curious. But you'll be able to take a look at that later on. But what's cool is Nike didn't stop there. These videos really serve 2 purposes. Okay, the first of which is that Nike could effectively reach its audience by spotlighting, different ambassadors from different segments too. Notice it's not just athletes in this video. It's also music artists and rappers to get other people interested into the shoe. Okay. And what's also cool is they had other brands market and advertise the shoe that aren't necessarily big, I wouldn't say partners, but they don't typically work with Nike that often. Okay. So if we take a look at other stuff, so like here, Fortnite did something with the Nike Air Max DN. So you can see here they did a simple collab partnership, Airphoria. So just simple things like that, and also while we're on the topic, I'll even mention this too. So this is the Drake video that was exclusive to Nike that talked about this. So obviously Drake was in the video with the 4 other athletes, but this is one that's specifically just with him in the same teacher setting. Now, I think that was maybe a 10-second clip, not even. And what's cool about it is they mentioned the same slogan, "Feel the Unreal," and it highlights the same kid that was late for tryouts, Max, obviously, in the ad. So it gets people's attention and also gets them wondering, oh, that's who Max is. It gives them that visualization and kind of that understanding of like, oh, this is what's happening. It makes that bridge so there's a stronger connection and stronger memory when it comes to kind of remembering the shoe. It's a very interesting and delicate strategy, but Nike's killed it with this. You see both videos and you're like, huh, who's Max? Right? If you see the Drake video first, you're like, who's Max? What are they talking about? Obviously it's the Air Max, but who is this guy? You watch the second video here, you're like, oh, that's Max. That's what it's all about. And then it just makes the connection. So Drake's video, in a way, is kind of a trailer to the full minute or so long video on all of the different influencer marketing athletes and artists. It's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite things. But I think, too, another one of my favorite details that was mentioned here in this case study, this is just the LinkedIn form if you're curious. Another cool thing within this marketing case study is Nike also reached out and kind of did a spray method. So what's interesting here is they didn't just target specific, I don't want to say A-listers, but definitely prominent people within their space. They also targeted smaller audiences that still had a big following that could promote the shoe in a new light. So obviously, looking back to the video, the sneaker was definitely promoted and marketed as an athletic shoe. Okay, despite more of the lifestyle type of look, you can still do a bunch of athletic activities in the sneaker. And so what better way to put that to the test than to have people who provide a new take on athletics for a living. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is a couple videos done by a couple guys who do this cool thing, and I want to share it with you here. So he's doing parkour, a parkour athlete promoting a Nike sneaker. Look how cool it is. It's a really good video, really well edited. So there's one, and I want to show you one more here too. Good shot there of the shoe. And this is just in London, just hanging out. You know, obviously that part was scripted, but just a very simple video of guys doing parkour. Now, if you don't know or are unaware of who these guys are, they are a part of a team that's called by the name of Storor. Okay, they're based out of, I believe, Brighton, out in the UK, and they do parkour for a living. Okay, you can see here from their YouTube channel, they have over 10 million subscribers. 10 million. I believe they started in 2010, have been going on. So they've been doing this now for 14 years. So these guys have been in the parkour world now for years and years and years. And obviously they're very well skilled. They're probably the most prominent parkour group, I think, in the world. And this is what they do. They put out videos every Monday and they have fun doing it. This is a shameless plug to Storor, but they've done a great job. And if you're curious, this is their website here. You can take a look at it in further detail. But these guys, they know marketing, they know business, they know parkour, and it's very well done. So this is, great layout. They're very talented, very skilled. And the two guys that you saw here was Toby and Callum, and they killed it with it. They were both very well done videos. Okay, both of them were very well edited. They showcased the sneaker in great light. They showed that you can do athletic things like parkour in the shoe. If you're not familiar with parkour, you need to make sure you have great shoes, because that is, in a way, your lifeline. Okay, if you're doing a jump or you're trying to do a particular move or sequence, you need to have good shoes to not only provide balance, but also grip to make sure that you're not going to be sliding and falling anywhere and injuring yourself. And so if these guys who do parkour for a living can vouch and say that they use the sneaker, it's pretty good. And what's cool too, Nike also killed another bird with the stone that they had, and that was they are now addressing the European audience. So like I said before, this is a UK-based brand, a UK-based company, YouTube channel. All these guys are from the United Kingdom, okay, particularly in Brighton, I think. Excuse me. And so having that ability to promote to overseas audiences with this group that gets a lot of traction, especially in Europe, it's a big deal. And so it seemed like a no-brainer to go with these guys. And I'm honestly surprised that Nike didn't reach out to all of them to do something. Obviously, Toby and Callum are probably, I would argue, the most prominent members of the group, particularly Toby, the redhead. But But either way, these guys have followings, all of them have followings of at least 100,000 followers, on their social platforms. So it's not like they have a small audience. It's just, some members do better than others. But that's what happens when you have, a group of 7. Someone's going to generally do better, which is totally okay. But Nike reaching out and doing and having an international presence, I think was very smart. And part of the reason why some businesses fail is some businesses fail because they want to take that next step. They want to reach out and branch out into the international borders and try to get their name out there. But they don't do that for a couple of reasons. Okay, one is because they might be intimidated by it. They don't want to fail. They don't want to mess up. They want to make sure that they're successful. They put their best foot forward, okay? And they want to make money. Ultimately, that's the whole point of business, is to make money, okay? But the problem sometimes is that, business owners and entrepreneurs can forget that taking those risks that they're afraid of is ultimately how they got to where they're at today. Had they not taken those same risks when they were younger, when they first started that business, when they first reached out to that business partner, when they first went out into this new venture, they would not have been able to get to the point where they're at today. So it's kind of being able to realize that wake-up call and say, hey, listen, like we've done this before, like we're successful, we're getting better. Like why not take this risk? Why not extend the envelope a little bit further and see if this is something that we can do? And obviously Nike has been well established worldwide, but even they had to start somewhere. So if you're a business owner and you're wondering if you should start branching out into the international business sector, you can take that risk. Okay, be calculated, right? Like it's smart to start in the UK because same language, less barriers, less cultural barriers. Okay, you know what to expect or have a general idea, and you're able to navigate that probably a lot better than if you were to start in other areas. Totally okay, right? That's just something to keep in mind, as people are going. So obviously Nike has done a bunch of work, with Fortnite, with Storor. They actually did a collab with Supreme on the Air Max DN, which did very well. But what's next? What's next for Nike and their campaign? What's really going to branch out and help them? And what's their next move? How does this campaign outline their next move? Okay, so this influencer strategy that Nike has is kind of hinting at their upcoming moves. Surprise, surprise. But one of the first ones is heavily investing in influencer marketing. Just like we talked about the reasons before, it's very effective. You're not spending as much money. You're able to tap into new audiences a lot easier had you done it instead by yourself. Okay, it's a lot harder to do it on your own, whereas if you get help from an influencer do it for you, right? If Nike were to try to get into the parkour world, it would be a challenge just because it's so niche and not a lot of people know about it or know how to market it. But in this case, Nike doesn't need to know how. They just reach out to people that already know, right? That's why they reached out to Storo, because they are quite simply the best in the game, in their field, in their niche. So Nike doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. They can just simply reach out to them, pay them for their ads and promotions that they do, and then run with that. Okay. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that here in the upcoming moves that Nike has. Okay. Not just within signature athlete sneakers, but like here with the Air Max DN with just lifestyle shoes. I think this is going to be something that Nike will continue to utilize. Okay. It acts as a win-win-win because Nike's saving money here. Okay. It requires a little maintenance on the company's end. It benefits the influencers, new customers, and Nike stakeholders in the long run. So if it's a triple win, it's going to be pretty difficult to kind of turn that down in the future, at least I would think. So I don't think it should be a surprise for why Nike's going to continue utilizing this. Okay, and just as before, another one is just going all in on video. Back in, when did Instagram first come out? Like 2012, 2013. Okay, photo was the thing. Everyone posted photos. That was the thing. You had a photo ad, it generally did okay. Obviously now that's not the case. Okay, and video has been thriving more now than it ever has. even after the pandemic, right? That's why TikTok and other platforms have gone off and gone viral, is because people prioritize and utilize video. Okay, so Nike's going to continue to do so, especially as 84% of customers prefer video over other marketing channels. So why wouldn't Nike put all of their attention and time into here? Okay, just as I mentioned, videos not only create a stronger relationship with the customer, that bond that they connect with, not just over the products, but over the stories, but it also improves just basic statistics, such as video retention, post engagement, number of shares on a post, the cost per click or the CPC rate, and several other key performance indicators or KPIs that companies are starting to really hone in on and utilize. So it makes sense for Nike to put a lot more attention on their video. I would say at least 84%. They can still do photos and such, but if the vast majority of people are preferring video, why wouldn't you put the vast majority of your budget, your marketing budget, towards video as well? It's just something to think about. And then the final move I think that's really hinting at, and something that we may start to see, is condensing Nike's product offerings. I thought I heard something in the background, that's why I had to turn around. They might be condensing Nike's product offerings. Okay, and they've done that before. And as intimidating as it might sound, it shouldn't be surprising. Like I said, Nike has had a history of doing this, and for good reason sometimes. Most recently, one of their most prominent ones was when Nike kind of scaled back its golf line. Okay, for a couple reasons. One, at the time, Tiger Woods was having some troubles in his personal life, and so Nike was trying to navigate that water as best as they can. He's been with Nike for 20 years and has brought them pretty much most of Nike's golf revenue. Okay, I think him and Rory are probably the biggest ones. But since then, obviously, Tiger's been back to normal. He's playing golf and he's doing great. And he started his own brand, Sunday Red. But since stepping away from the brand, obviously before that, Nike was scaling back initially just because it wasn't selling as well as their more prominent sporting goods per se. Probably their best ones, I would argue, are it's running, it's basketball, and probably soccer. Those are probably their three biggest ones. I would say soccer just because it's global presence. Basketball because that's where most of Nike's athletes are generally from within that sphere. Okay, pun intended, right? And running simply because that's Nike's roots. Nike was founded at the University of Oregon, and one of the founders was, a track coach at the college. So it makes sense, right? And so Nike is going to naturally put a lot of focus in those areas where they're very familiar with, they're prominent, they're making a lot of money, and they know what they're doing. That's not to say they didn't know what they were doing with golf, but when you have other established brands like Titleist, like TaylorMade, like Callaway, a whole bunch of other ones, there's plenty out there. It's hard to compete with those companies, okay, even when they're not a big retailer like Nike. So it makes things a bit of a challenge, okay? And sometimes Nike just has to realize, hey, you know what? We need to really hone in on our strengths. Okay, they'll still expand, and they still are. We think, wow, lots of thoughts running through my head here. I think we could definitely see Nike get into the pickleball world simply because of how fast it's growing and the new sport it's creating, okay? But just as it expands, it also contracts, okay? And I wouldn't be surprised if Nike contracts with different sporting goods that they have. Obviously, over the past year, they've been contracting as far as employees go and as far as layoffs are happening. Okay, it's been a small percentage, but it's still, noticeable, right? It's still making news in the headlines. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of turns out for Nike in the long run. It's curious, but regardless on how Nike decides on their next moves, it's clear that campaigns like the Air Max DN are continuing to thrive and to flourish, and it's going to be around for a while. I don't know if it's going to be as successful as the VaporMax line, but there's a chance that it could be just as much. We may see an Air Max DN2 at some point next year. We may or we may not. But one thing is clear is that this campaign has blossomed and evolved into something probably bigger than most people would expect. Okay, when I first did the case study, I wasn't necessarily expecting that they were going to have, Drake, Billie Eilish, and Sha'Carri Richardson, in their newest ad. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, I wasn't expecting that they would come out with different collaborations with Fortnite and Supreme and British parkour brands and, YouTube channels. I wouldn't expect that either. But that's what's so cool about Nike's marketing strategy is just when you think you have figured it out, they open a new path, a new door, and you have to resolve the whole thing again. And it makes for an interesting and great case study, as you saw. But that is the case study, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see any of the case studies, go ahead and take a look at my website. Make sure you pay the fee if you enjoyed the show, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.